Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're unpacking a concept from recent source material that is absolutely fascinating, and honestly maybe a little bit unsettling. It's the idea that the self is essentially just a story told by neuroscience and psychology. Most of us walk around every single day feeling like we have this completely stable self, like there's a continuous, unbroken identity moving seamlessly through time. But as we're going to see today, the person you call you is actually way less permanent than it feels.
So let's kick things off with a pretty direct question. Are you the exact same person you were 10 years ago? Really think about it for a second. The you who's listening to this right now probably feels a deep, intuitive connection to the you from childhood. But long-term studies tell a radically different story. They show that over the course of a lifetime, our human values completely shift, our goals evolve, old fears totally disappear, and our preferences transform. If you really get down to it, the version of you from a decade ago might actually think and act completely differently than the current version of you.
And here is where it gets really interesting, because neuroscience backs this up. The hard truth is that you are not a fixed entity. Your identity is not some permanent, unchanging core hidden away deep inside your brain. Instead, your identity appears to be a constantly updated narrative. It's a story that your brain is generating on the fly, second by second, building it out of your memories, your fluctuating emotions, your predictions about the future, and your social interactions.
I mean, if you think about it, the basic human experience is incredibly fragmented. Our thoughts are jumping all over the place, our emotions fluctuate wildly from hour to hour, and our memories constantly fade. Even down on a purely biological level, our cells are literally dying and regenerating while our core beliefs evolve over time. It's a lot of chaos. Yet somehow, your consciousness feels perfectly unified. Why? Because your brain is a master organizer. It acts like a relentless storyteller, taking all these totally disconnected random moments and weaving them into the illusion of a stable, unified identity, just so we can function in society without feeling completely disorganized.
This brings us to a huge part of that illusion. Memory is reconstruction, not replay. We all kind of do this naturally. We imagine our memory acts like a fixed video recording. Like, when you remember your 10th birthday, you're just pressing play on stored footage in your head. But neuroscience shows us that memory works much more like an active puzzle. Every single time you remember something, your brain isn't just replaying a file. It is actively rebuilding the event from scratch, pulling together fragmented bits of information stored all over the brain.
There's a fantastic quote from the source material that really hits the nail on the head. The past you remember is partly a present reconstruction. Because your brain is actively rebuilding those events in real time, your memories are incredibly vulnerable to being distorted. Details get swapped out. Even your current mood can completely alter how you interpret a past event. Basically, new experiences are continuously reshaping old narratives, meaning your brain is constantly editing the story of your life.
Okay, moving on to our next concept, tricking the physical self.
You have got to hear about the rubber hand illusion because it is truly mind-bending. Usually, our sense of self feels firmly glued inside our physical body, right? But in this classic experiment, researchers hide a person's real hand and put a fake rubber hand in front of them. Then, they stroke both hands with a brush at the exact same time. The visual and sensory signals are perfectly aligned, and almost immediately the person starts feeling actual physical ownership over the fake rubber hand. Their brain just adopts it. Virtual reality experiments push this even further to create out-of-body experiences, which proves that the brain dynamically constructs the feeling of selfhood using whatever sensory information is available. The boundaries of your physical identity are literally constructed on the fly.
Let's look at how this builds into our next point. The brain predicts your identity.
Modern neuroscience treats the brain less like a passive camera, just observing the world, and more like a massive prediction machine. It is constantly generating expectations about everything. It predicts your behavior, your identity, your emotions, your social role, and even the future decisions you're going to make. And these self-predictions are absolutely crucial because they're what create that sense of day-to-day consistency. Your brain is literally trying to predict you.
But here's where it gets a little dangerous, and this is a big takeaway. Think about your inner dialogue. If you repeatedly have an internal monologue telling yourself, I'm always anxious, or I always fail, or I'm just not confident, well, your brain is listening. It takes those predictions and starts organizing your entire real-world experience around those exact narratives. You can actually trap yourself inside a really rigid, negative identity simply because your brain is trying its best to fulfill the ongoing story you keep feeding it.
Which leads us to some of the most famous findings in neuroscience, the split brain reveal. Decades ago, researchers studied patients who had their brain hemispheres surgically separated to treat severe seizures, and they discovered something absolutely wild. If they prompted one side of the brain to perform an action, the other, conscious side of the brain wouldn't know why it was happening. But it didn't just say, "I don't know." Instead, it automatically invented a reason for the action afterward. It generated a totally fabricated, plausible-sounding explanation right on the spot, just to preserve a coherent sense of self.
And what this reveals is a profound truth about all of us. Consciousness functions partly as a storyteller. Your mind loves to create narratives to explain your behavior after the events have already happened. You do something, and then your brain rushes in to write a script about why you acted that way, making you feel like you were in totally conscious, logical control the whole time. The storyteller in your head and the story itself, they might not actually be the same thing. Let's expand this out a bit now. Social reality helps build the self.
We usually like to think of our identity as deeply private, right? Something formed in total isolation inside our own minds. But your brain is actually constantly updating its self-perception through your interactions with the outside world. From the time you're born, you internalize social roles, cultural expectations, the narratives your family tells about you, the language you speak, and the groups you belong to. Much of what feels incredibly, deeply personal to you is actually profoundly shaped by external systems. So the self isn't just biology, it is partly a social construction. It's a story continuously reinforced by the people around you.
All right, getting into our final and probably most mind-bending concept, the story without an author. Think about all the different systems of your consciousness that are interacting right now. Your memory, your current emotions, your attention, your sensory processing, language. One of the strangest ideas in modern neuroscience is that despite all this activity, there might be no single, central self inside the brain. There is no little CEO sitting in a control room behind your eyes pulling the levers. Instead, consciousness and the self emerge organically from all these fragmented systems working together simultaneously. Ultimately, there is no central controller. The feeling of being one unified, solid person is itself a construction. The self feels singular only because the brain is so incredibly good at integrating all of your scattered, chaotic experiences into one cohesive narrative stream. It connects your memories into a timeline, explains your actions after the fact, predicts your future, and maintains this feeling of continuity. It is a brilliant, totally seamless, ongoing illusion. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. If your brain is constantly creating the story of you, who do you want to write into existence tomorrow? Since neuroscience shows us that identity is incredibly fluid and not just a solid rock you're stuck with, it means you actually have agency. How are you going to guide your brain's inner dialogue moving forward, knowing that it continuously creates the person you believe yourself to be? Thank you so much for exploring this material with me today. Keep shaping your story.